as much on the edge as they are at Michigan International Speedway. This was Danny Ungaius in this year's Michigan 500. Last year at the Detroit News Grand Prix, Johnny Rutherford, after setting an all-time qualifying mark earlier, is into the concrete with just 4 laps to go, causing this 100-lap race to end under yellow. Pancho Carter, who beat Rutherford to the flag in a controversial finish at San Air earlier this year, has also had his problems here at Michigan. On the last lap of the 84 500, Pancho attempts to pass Rick Mears for second, but Carter is into the grass and flips and rolls violently down the backstretch. But miraculously, Pancho Carter escapes with no injury. One of the most horrifying crashes involved Al Unser Jr. and Chip Ganassi, also at the 84 500. Both slammed the inner guardrail coming off of turn 2. Unser walks away. Chip is released from the hospital in just a few days. MIS has also seen some great finishes. In the same 84 500, Mario Andretti beat Tom Steva in the closest IndyCar finish in history. This year, the battle for the national championship is tight. Al Unser Jr. leads Mario Andretti and his father by just 6 points, as there are only 4 more races to go. Its 7th season as your #1 auto racing network presents Auto Racing 85. We welcome you to Michigan International Speedway in the Southern Hills of Michigan near Jackson for the Detroit News 200. The weather here today, 80 degrees, humidity 80 degrees, rather breezy up on top of the broadcast booth where we are. There is hazy sunshine, but no chance of rain during the course of the afternoon. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Larry Newber. This is Michigan International Speedway, the scene of some horrifying crashes over the years, but also the scenes of some great competitive racing, Larry.
Bob, I think that by and large, we at ESPN have done pretty well not emphasizing the dangers of racing. Indeed, a lot of these people are very good friends, and we don't like to see it as much as some of you who are very close fans. But when you come to this racetrack, you can't help but have the feeling of ominousness. Some of the best racing drivers in the world have been bitten by this racetrack. Fortunately, this weekend has been squeaky clean. The only problems we've had have been with Danny Sullivan, and those have been mechanical.
The points battle as we go into the latter portion of the 1985 CART PPG IndyCar World Series. Al Unser Jr. on top of the point standings by 6 over Mario Andretti and his father.
Well, Bob, there are actually 4 drivers who are virtually in a 3-way or 4-way deadlock for the points championship, Emerson Fittipaldi being the other. 2 others have at least a mathematical chance. But what it amounts to, in the last 4 races here, the purse might as well be $300,000. That's what it pays for first place in points.
The third member of our broadcast crew today in the pit area. Here is Jack Arute.
Gentlemen, there's 2 key stories that we'll be watching here on pit road. One is way up front in the 4th starting position. That is, of course, Don Whittington, who makes his 3rd start of the 1985 season in the Patrick team car. The last time he sat in the ride was back at Milwaukee back in June. Way in the back, in 23rd starting position, is this car, Danny Sullivan. Sullivan, encountering fuel pickup problems during his qualifying effort, had to make use of a promoter's option to make it into the field. A first for Sullivan and a first for the Penske team as well. Never has Roger Penske had to use the promoter's option to make his way into the field. Sullivan hopes that he can kind of part the wave, go to the front like Moses did the Red Sea. We'll have to wait and see. Gentlemen?
IndyCar racing from Michigan International Speedway coming up. And the Detroit News 200 is being brought to you by Ford. We are back at Michigan, and the command to start engines have been given. The 25 cars that will start in today's race are now beginning to roll out of the pit area and on to the high banks of Michigan International Speedway. It's a beautiful day here this afternoon. Unlike last year, remember we had rain last year on this date, and the race was postponed until the next day. But it looks like we're able to get through this race without any problem as far as weather is concerned. Now all 25 cars are moving down pit road here at Michigan. Well, let's take a closer look at this racetrack they'll be competing on here today. It's a 2-mile D-shaped oval. The backstretch is 2,242 feet in length. The turns are banked at 18 degrees. The front stretch is banked at 12 degrees, and the backstretch is relatively flat at only 5 degrees. Actually, this is a tri-oval, as there is a dog leg here in front of the main grandstand. The pace car leads the field off of the second corner and onto the backstretch in the first of 2 warm-up laps. The third time by, they will be getting the green flag for 100 laps of racing. Now let's look at the starting lineup for today's race. On the pole from Dublin, Ohio, in car number 3, the Budweiser True Sports March, Bobby Rahal. On the outside of row number 1, in car number 1, will be Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, in the Beatrice Lola T900. In row number 2, Pancho Carter from Brownsburg, Indiana, in the Valvoline Hawk. Outside of row number 2, in car number 20, the STP Oil Treatment March, will be Don Whittington from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The third row, Michael Andretti in number 99, the Electrolux Craco March. Outside of row number 3, number 98, Ed Pim from Dublin, Ohio, in the Skoal Bandit. The fourth row, Rick Mears in number 5, the Pennzoil Z7 Special. Outside of row number 4, Al Unser Jr., number 30, the Domino's Pizza Hot One. The fifth row, Kevin Kogan, number 18, the Craco Stereo Wolf Systems March. Outside of the fifth row, Emerson Fittipaldi in number 40, the 711 STP March. The sixth row, car number 59, Pete Halsmer from Lafayette in the Scott Ladd Foods Machinist March. Outside the sixth row, car number 2, Tom Sneva from Paradise Valley, Arizona. And in the seventh row, car number 25, Danny and Gaius, the Interscope Racing March. Outside of row number 7, Johnny Rutherford in number 21 in the Vermont American Alex Foods March. The eighth row has Scott Brayton in car number 37 and Dick Simon in number 22. In row number 9, Roberto Guerrero in number 9 and number 11, Al Unser Sr. The 10th row, Howdy Holmes in number 33 and Ari Lyondike in 61. The 11th row, car number 12, Bill Whittington, and number 7, Jeff Brabham. In the 12th row will be Danny Sullivan in car number 4 and Steve Chassey in 56. And all alone in row number 13 in car number 55, Ozele Garza. Those are the 25 starters in today's Detroit News 200. Now, Danny Sullivan here in car number 4 has already visited the pit road, Larry.
Yeah, Bob, I don't think it makes too much difference, though. He was scheduled to start in 23rd position. They've been making a lot of changes on that car all weekend long, so it may have been a planned situation. They may have planned on going out, taking the car around once, having Danny check out all the gauges and how it felt, then duck back in the pits here because there's plenty of time, 3 times by the start-finish line before this race starts. They're starting way in the back. They put nothing in jeopardy, and they've had an opportunity to take one last look at the work that they've done all weekend.
Danny Sullivan had some problems qualifying. They weren't getting proper fuel to the engine of that car, and that's the reason that Sullivan is starting today in 23rd position in the Miller American. He qualified at 203.172 miles an hour as compared to Bobby Rahal's pole-sitting speed of 214.254. The pace car leads the field off of corner number 4 and into the tri-oval. Ed Pim, somewhat of a surprise. Good qualifying effort. He starts 6th.
Bob, he starts 6th in the Eagle, and that Eagle has been strong all weekend long. There is Penn, the former Super V champion. Remember, we showed him at Milwaukee earlier this year on an oval running an Eagle. He was strong there all weekend long, too. He has been faster than his teammate Tom Sneva. That alone is a big surprise, and well up into the top 10 all 3 days of practice and qualifying.
Well, we always like to get predictions from our announced team before we go to the green flag. Let's get the opinion of Larry Newber first on who looks strong in this race.
Well, first of all, Bob, I must say that Johnny Rutherford has exuded all types of confidence this week. I expect a strong race from him, but the man who's been the quickest the last month has been Bobby Rahal. That's where I would put my money.
All right. There's the qualifying record, which is, as far as a race is concerned, 215.202 miles an hour. July 19th of 1985, the fastest lap in IndyCar history. Well, Jack, a route down in the pit area. Who do you think is going to win this race?
Bob, I'm going to pick the gentleman that probably has more laps here than anybody. He's the team driver for Roger Penske. He's the longest running team driver. That, of course, is Rick Mears. He may be running a limited schedule, but he's tough to beat on an oval, especially when it's Michigan.
Well, I'm going to predict the winner of this race to be Bobby Rahal, the pole sitter of the event. The pace car has pulled off of the track now, and the 25 starters are beginning to accelerate as they come out of corner number 4 onto the tri-oval. The pole sitter is Bobby Rahal alongside Mario Andretti. Pancho Carter and Don Whittington are in row number 2, and the green flag comes out, and the Detroit News 200 underway from Michigan International Speedway. We have seen 3 and even 4 abreast racing here on this track, and there was no exception as the cars hit the banking, the 18 degrees of banking in corner number 1, as drivers were jockeying for position 4 abreast through there. Now they get kind of scattered out as they go down the backstretch, and it is Bobby Rahal leading this race as they come off of corner number 4 and onto the tri-oval. Michael Andretti showing some muscle right at the start-finish line, and Michael Andretti goes into the lead. He was right alongside Bobby Rahal as they cross the stripe to complete lap number 1, and look at Michael Andretti go.
Bob, a couple of other points. Our initial report from around the racetrack from kart spotters is that Pancho Carter may be throwing oil. Michael Andretti's shorter now, but Kevin Kogan also got a gargantuan jump at the start. Both of the Craco cars are really out of the box fast and moving.
Michael Andretti, of course, looked very strong in the Pocono 500 earlier this year and has asserted his authority and made sure that everyone is aware that he is a factor in this race here on the high banks. Andretti now stretching out the lead over Bobby Rahal as they're in turn number 2 again, and some of the back markers begin to move up, including Al Unser.
There's Rick Mears on the far left-hand side of your screen. He just scooted around the outside of Mario Andretti. Rick runs in 3rd, Mario in 4th as they charge down into the high bank, corner number 3. You can see Mario going in just a little hotter than Rick. Rick's momentum should catch up now as they move to the middle of the corner. There's a nice close-up on Rick, but Mario getting a good line between 3 and 4.
Rick Mears now is 3rd, Andretti 4th. They move side by side into turn number 1. That's Andretti on the low side, and Mario takes back 3rd position from Rick Mears. Michael Andretti continues to lead. Rahal is 2nd. Then this battle for 3rd involving Mario Andretti and Rick Mears. Running in 5th position is Ed Pym, and in 6th spot is the number 6 car of Pancho Carter. There is Rick Mears following Mario Andretti.
As we watch 3rd and 4th place, just a word about Michael Andretti, Bob. He's been, and there's Michael's teammate Kevin. Look at Kevin rushing up there behind Rick Mears, goes to the inside. We told you earlier, Kevin had a great start. He showed all types of confidence in that first lap. Way up along the wall. I don't know if you caught on our quick speed shot coming off of turn number 4, but Kevin also feeling very racy. A little more on that Michael Andretti situation in just a moment, but back to this now.
Kevin Kogan in 4th position, having gone around Rick Mears. Kevin Kogan looking strong, but now Mears looking to the inside as they go into turn number 3, but cannot find the opportunity to pass and backs off the accelerator just momentarily. Here they come down to complete lap number 5. It's Andretti followed by Rahal. Then Mario Andretti, Kevin Kogan, Rick Mears, and Ed Pym in that order.
The people working on the Craco cars, they may have discovered something. We were about to say that Michael, who you're looking at right now, was sort of the silent man of this week. He didn't really flash any real tremendously high speed, but you just had the feeling that they were solid. He said he qualified all the way around the racetrack, put down flat, qualified well up into the top 10, starting in 6th position, I believe, and he really has come on strong here once the green flag is dropped.
Ed Pym and Pancho Carter on the racetrack right behind Rick Mears here. The word is from the pit area that Ed Pym may be having some trouble with the rear wing, not stabilizing the car properly. He moves to the inside, however, of Rick Mears, but Mears has the line to the high side in turn number 2 and keeps the position. Al Unser, the teammate of Rick Mears, as we mentioned earlier, is definitely moving up. He started in 18th position and is already up to 8. Now Ed Pym passes Rick Mears, and so does Pancho Carter.
Well, Pancho, who we thought might have been throwing some oil a little earlier, doesn't show any sign of it this time. Pancho comes almost out of nowhere and moves to the inside of Rick Mears, who has had quite a day. Rick has been racing everybody, but they've all been getting by him.
Now Mears to the inside once again, looking for the spot that Pancho Carter holds right now in that yellow car. Following Rick Mears is Mears' teammate Al Unser, who's come on from 18th starting position.
Well, Rick has been playing leapfrog with everybody over these first 7 laps, but so far it's not worked to his benefit. Unser, as we mentioned, he has moved up from the back of the pack. There's Al looking at the inside of Pancho. Another guy who was charged up, another renegade in the back, Denny Sullivan, unofficially has moved up to 13th. But Al Unser Sr. there on the right-hand side of your screen, that yellow card now in the center, is one of the guys charging up from the back.
We're watching 7th, 8th, and 9th position here. This race can only be termed a sprint race. Only 100 laps on the 2 miles of racing surface, and so it's basically flat out all the way. There is the leader, Michael Andretti. but you can see Rahal now sneaking up on him. He closes in going into turn number 3. Rahal keeps that low line as Michael Andretti's car is about halfway up the 18 degrees of banking. Into the tri-oval once again. Andretti keeping the lead, but without question, Bobby Rahal is catching him.
Boy, he's coming on like gangbusters. Here's the guy who sat on the pole, or at least been the fastest qualifier at the last 2 IndyCar races here at MIS. Remember, he won a race on ESPN earlier here at this racetrack a few years ago. Bobby looking to the inside of Michael. Looks like he has the line. Michael gets some momentum off the top. Rahal sticks really solid down the 200-mile-per-hour plus, and then some backstretch, charging into turn number 3.
Michael Andretti, however, keeps the lead going into the third corner. As a matter of fact, pulls away now from Bobby Rahal just slightly. Rahal with the challenge in corner number 2, but as they came off the corner and down the backstretch, Michael Andretti outpowered Bobby Rahal. Andretti doing a fine job here in the early stages. No, we're not talking about Mario Andretti. We're talking about Michael Andretti, the leader of this race.
And as we watch this battle for first, Michael's teammate, Kevin Kogan, has moved into third. The Craco cars are really going. Here comes Rahal again, trying the inside one more lap.
At just about the same location on the track as last lap, Bobby Rahal tries it again, but Andretti holds him off and cuts low on the racetrack. So Andretti and Rahal are wheel to wheel here on the high banks. There's Bobby Rahal in second spot. They come through the tri-oval once again and cross the line. Andretti still has the lead. Let's see what Rahal does as they go into turn number 1. Rahal with the inside advantage, and he passes Andretti and goes into the lead.
Look at him take off. He immediately puts distance between himself and Michael. Wow, and here comes Kevin. You see Kevin there in the center of your screen, moving in on his teammate. The 2 Craco cars now nose to tail. Kevin Kogan coming out of nowhere, goes to the inside of Michael, and Kevin Kogan, who's put on perhaps the best charge of anybody all day, has now moved into the runner-up spot. Easily, Bob, his best performance of the year here at Michigan today.
Kevin Kogan started this race in 9th spot in the number 18 Craco car, and he has moved on to second spot right now and is closing in on the leader, Bobby Rahal. Kevin Kogan from Redondo Beach, California, doing an outstanding job here in the early stages of the Detroit News 200 from Michigan International Speedway. Right now, the leader is Bobby Rahal. We'll see if Kogan can catch him. Join us when we return to the Detroit News 200. International Speedway. 15 laps have now been completed. Rahal is the leader. The average speed is 203.30 miles an hour. They are averaging over 200. You can see how much that exceeds the race record to this point. Kevin Kogan is running in second position behind the leader, Bobby Rahal. And we earlier had a conversation about Kevin concerning this racetrack.
One of the appeals, I guess, to Major League Racing drivers is you guys all like to go fast. Certainly you go faster nowhere else than here in Michigan. But do you like this place?
Well, I really don't, mainly because of the bumpiness. I think that, you have to race, you have to go your best anywhere we go. It's a difficult decision, you have to compete in every race to be for the championship. But I really don't like it. I think that it's a difficult place to maintain and keep smooth, so it's very difficult to be safe.
So far this weekend, Michigan has been very safe, and we hope that's the way it continues throughout the weekend. Bobby Rahal continues to make that. Kevin Kogan now has moved into the lead. Kevin Kogan into the lead now. Bobby Rahal running in second spot as the leader begins to lap some of the slower traffic.
Heavy traffic, as you see them going down the backstretch. Rahal trying to sneak through. There is Kevin also in that group. There is one of the Whittingtons going by. There's Kevin once again on the high side going on the outside of Dick Simon now as they motor through turns 3 and 4. Remember, we have seen Kevin run up front here at Michigan International before. He was involved in a spectacular crash between turns 1 and 2 with A.J. Foyt about 4 years ago as they were battling for first position. So Kevin may not like this place, but there's something about it, something about his driving style that apparently they really go hand in hand and they work in harmony, because Kevin can be very fast here.
Danny Sullivan has moved up to 10th position at this point. Here he is, the number 4 Miller American car. He started, remember, in 23rd position. He has passed 13 cars here in the first 18 laps of this race. Danny Sullivan, winner of the Indianapolis 500 this year.
Here again is Pancho Carter trying to hold his own. It looks like Tom Sneva, yeah. Sometimes it's difficult to tell Sneva and Pim apart on the racetrack because the cars, of course, painted very similar, the same sponsor. Tom Sneva looked up and took a look underneath Pancho. Now here comes Danny Sullivan. We've been tracking checking Sullivan's progress. Sullivan goes underneath Sneva, and Sneva closes the door on him, but that's the racing line. That's what you can do, particularly if you're an oval track veteran, but Sullivan is coming on strongly. I kind of guess it'll only be a matter of a couple of laps here, if not less, before Danny picks up one more position. Here he comes.
This is the battle for ninth spot now. Sneva has it, but Sullivan in number 4 looking to take over ninth position from Tom. Here they are in the north banking, turns number 3 and 4. The cars separated by about 20 to 25 car lengths now. Emerson Fittipaldi sneaking up on the rear wing of Danny Sullivan here in 11th position. Right now it looks like that Tom Sneva is going to be able to hold off Sullivan's challenges.
Well, Sneva tried very hard to get the lull into the field this week, but finally at almost the last minute they decided, no, we're going to scrap that plan and go back to the Eagle. There is Tom and the Eagle. We saw a quick shot of Emerson Fittipaldi running in that group, and there is Sullivan. Well, they've had a raft of problems all week long, but they've stayed with it. You know, you would kind of think that with the team owner and manager Roger Penske owning this racetrack, they would have a lot of practice laps here, and maybe they would come here and almost be automatically dialed in. But I think it's a testimony to how competitive this type of racing has become. These guys come in with seemingly an unfair advantage, but it turns out to be no significant advantage at all.
Danny Sullivan from Louisville, Kentucky, former Formula One driver. Actually, he competed a year in Indy cars, then went to Formula One, came back to Indy cars, and has performed well since his return to Indy cars. Of course, the big win of his career, the Indianapolis 500, earlier this year. Kevin Kogan remains in the lead. There is Michael Andretti, who is on the low side of the racetrack. Could Michael be having some problems? He was the early leader of this race, but is definitely off the pace and coming into the pit area. Michael Andretti is coming in.
Definitely a premature stop. Now, the fuel load here should allow them to go 35 to 40 laps, so it's unlikely that this is certainly a stop for fuel. You figure everybody have to stop once or maybe twice, but Michael Andretti has come in early and finishes there.
They are going, it looks like, to the right side, and now they have killed the engine on Michael Andretti's car. You can hear that it's silent down here. They're going to pull the bonnet and take a look at what may be a terminal engine problem. We'll give you more as it begins to unfold here.
Well, there's smoke coming from the engine compartment of that race car as they unbutton the cover and examine the engine a little bit more closely. A tough break for Michael Andretti, who led the early stages of this 100-lap event. Teammate Kevin Kogan is the leader. His advantage over Bobby Rahal is about 15.3 seconds now. Ed Pym is running in 3rd position. Rick Mears is 4th. And Al Unser running in 5th. We'll be back with more of the Detroit News 200 right after this. We mentioned earlier how this is going to be a sprint race. The race is already 1/4 over. 25 make that 26 laps are now completed. And the leader is Kevin Kogan from Redondo Beach, California. In 2nd position is Bobby Rahal. And look who Kevin is lapping on the backstretch. That's Al Unser Jr.
Boy, a most unusual sight. This young man, needless to say, has had a great season. He's won a couple races, been in a position to win at least 2 others. He can be very fast on this racetrack. He's another one of those people this racetrack has snared, though, however, in terms of serious crashes. But they have been crashing around all weekend, too, like Sullivan, although they thought they came upon something during qualifying. They went out, they felt they were unprepared, but lo and behold, it all came together, and they qualified well, but it just hasn't come together in the race.
Seems like that every time we have a leader as far as points are concerned in IndyCar racing this year, the next race they suffer some problems and fall out of the lead. We have seen that several times this year, and the points leader, Al Unser Jr., is definitely not on the pace here at Michigan this weekend. Now the leader, Kevin Kogan, in the Tri-Oval, approaching Jeff Brabham and trying to put a lap on him. Kevin Kogan has never won an IndyCar race. His best finish this year was a 5th at Portland on the road course.
Bob, I'll tell you, you saw this move as he jerked around Jeff Brabham going into turn number 1. Boy, that car is working well. Not only is it going fast, but you could see when the green flag dropped, Kevin went to some grooves where nobody else was. Kevin Kogan's car is really handling well.
Let's go to the pit area and an update from Jack Arute.
First, the update on Michael Andretti. They continue to work on the car. They're not sure if it's in the ignition or possibly a header system that has gone awry. Further on down pit road, there's more serious problems potentially for Al Unser Jr., who is currently leading in the points. You know how he's on top? Well, he has a severe push in the car. They're waiting for that first pit stop, which should come up very shortly. Hopefully, they'll be able to solve that problem. He'll be able to pick up some more speed because he is dropping off the race speeds being set by the leaders.
Without question, Jackie is already down to 20th position and shown as a lapped car. So Al Unser Jr.'s attempt to stay atop the points, not very successful at this point.
In terms of those people who are near the top of the points ladder, his father, Al Unser Sr., and Mario Andretti are having the best days of anybody so far. There is Rick Mears, along with Ed Pim going around, Al Unser Jr. And Rick trying to use this opportunity to draft by Ed Pim. That is for position, and Mears does it. Rick Mears moves underneath Ed Pim, and that puts him back up into third position.
Absolutely right. Rick Mears going to the inside of Ed Pim and going into third position. Our pit crew spotters have informed us that Kevin Kogan may be coming in for a pit stop in the next few laps. He isn't going to this time because he's still high on the banking at speed. We'll be watching to see if Kevin Kogan does come in for his first pit stop in just a few laps.
Everybody will have to make 2 pit stops. So the trick is here, obviously you've got to go about a third of the race on each load of fuel. So we have completed 31 laps. We're getting near that window where if you stop now, chances are you can make it the rest of the way on 1 more stop or 2 more loads of fuel. So, yeah, we're getting to the point where the stops might become routine.
Don Whittington comes into the pit area. Don was our 4th starter here that started outside of row number 2. But Don Whittington comes in for a pit stop. And here indeed is Kevin Kogan in for the pit stop. We'll follow him down and see how quickly he can get the fuel into that car and the tires changed if he needs any.
Kevin Kogan brings his car to a stop. They go to work for an exchange of 3 tires. They're going to leave the left front on, but put brand new Goodyear the rest of the way around. Don Whittington speeds by Kevin Kogan, who is running so well. And what's interesting here is this is a good precautionary stop for him. He should come in a little early. They drop the jack. They'll be able to measure now his fuel consumption. 17 seconds, not bad under green.
And he blasts out of the pit area and goes back on to the racetrack. Kevin Kogan, who was leading the race before he came in for the stop.
Just a point about that yellow line. In the driver's meeting this morning, it was told that you can put 2 wheels above that yellow line as you blend up into traffic. At Pocono, we saw you could put no wheels above that line. If you violated that, you were required to come in for a stop-and-go penalty. But here at MIS, driver's meeting this morning, 2 wheels are okay because there are some rough spots down there. They want to give the drivers as much opportunity to move around that as possible.
Both Penske cars in for a stop. Here is Rick Mears pulling out of the pit area. His teammate Al Unser Sr. is still in the pits. Also in for a stop is Pancho Carter. Here comes Howdy Holmes in number 33. Rick Mears going back out onto the racetrack, moving back up to speed in turn 2.
Pit stops are always critical. In a place like San Air, where we were the last time in the IndyCar race, obviously very important because the track was so short. But here at Michigan, track's not short, race is short. And every second in the pits is at least a football field of distance on the racetrack.
Well, Larry, Rick Mears' teammate Al Unser Sr. is having major problems in the pit area. He is still in the pits, and there's no sign of him pulling out. Back down to Jack Arute.
No sooner did Michael Andretti come to our position to give us an interview as to what happened than they discovered what the problem was. You see the batteries that provide the spark to these cars. Well, they had a faulty one on the car. They grabbed Michael from our side, said, get back in the car. We've got it solved. We're going racing.
Well, any amount of laps that Michael Andretti can complete could mean some more points for him toward the final standings, and that's the reason he'll be getting back into that car and rejoin the race. Johnny Rutherford into the pit area. His work is completed, and he pulls back out.
Johnny had been lapped by the leader, Kevin Kogan, just before this series of pit stops started. So, depending on how efficient they were in the pit area, Johnny is either going to be a lap down or very close to it once he gets back out on the racetrack. You cannot see exactly where Kevin is. There's Johnny working his way out, keeping the left wheels below the yellow line and moving up to the blending position coming out of turn number 2.
Is Michael Andretti going back into the hunt or not? Jack, what about it?
We'll ask him. Michael, first you were going to go, now you're going to stay. What's the situation?
Well, I guess you're not allowed to go out after you pull up behind the wall, so we're not going to go. Also, we think it's alternator.
A tough break, but Bobby Rahal, the lead, is in the pits now. Assess the leaders. Who do you think has got the stamina in the push now that you're out of it to win this thing?
To me, it looked like Kogan and Rahal. They looked like the 2 strongest. They went by me the quickest, but it's still, early. Anybody could still win this thing.
What about the track conditions? You've had a chance now. Are they as bad or are they better than they were back here in the Michigan 500?
I think they're a little better. I think Roger's been trying real hard, and I think it's acceptable right now.
Well, it's acceptable out on the racetrack, but not for this gentleman because he's out.
Michael Andretti will have to wait for another race to strong here in the early going, but is out because of an electrical problem. We have completed 37 laps of the 100-lap Detroit News 200, and we'll be back with more racing action from Michigan International Speedway. A week from today, Sunday, September 29th at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, Larry, Jack, and I will be at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina for the Holly Farms 400 Grand National Race. Darrell Waltrip, the defending champion in it, but of course all the other stars of NASCAR, including million-dollar Bill Elliott, will be there. Join us for this 400-lapper on the half mile at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina Speedway 1 week from today, September the 29th at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Well, we have not yet had a yellow flag in this race, and Larry, we could very possibly break the record and have the fastest IndyCar race in history here today.
Bob, as you pointed out, we're well past the quarter point, approaching halfway. The average speed is well above 190 miles an hour today. You can see the fastest race in history is set here back in September of '83. Rick Mears at 182 miles an hour. Rick also has the privilege of having the second fastest race in IndyCar history, set in the high banks in Atlanta in 1979. He also has the third fastest race. Gary Benhausen has turned in a very fast race in this type of racing back in 1973 at the Texas Motor Speedway when he averaged over 181 miles an hour. And by the way, in case you were interested, the fastest 500-mile race in history was set in Monza, Italy, back in 1958. Jim Rath.
I've been there. Roberto Guerrero, who recently became a father, as a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, a baby boy, joined to born to Roberto and Katie Guerrero, and our congratulations to them. Roberto's not doing too well here in this race. It looks like this is something other than a routine pit stop, as they do have the engine cover off.
Yeah, 8 pounds, 2 ounces. Marco, Katie is back home watching. Everybody is healthy. Roberto got to see the baby boy before he left for the races here at Indiana, and Katie is back home in Orange County. Hi, Katie. Hi, Marco. And it's going to be another long day, I think, again for your man.
Bobby Rahal is the leader of the race in car number 3. In second place is Kevin Kogan, and Rick Mears is third, followed by Ed Pym in fourth position, and the number 1 of Mario Andretti is shown as fifth. Sixth spot belongs to Don Whittington. Then in seventh is Tom Sneva, and eighth is Danny Sullivan. That's the way they're running. It's about a 4-second advantage now for Bobby Rahal, the leader.
And Bob, the word that we have, and boy, this is deflating for everybody who's a Kevin Kogan fan, is that he may be required for a stop-and-go penalty because of going over the yellow line, the blend line, as he exited the pit after his pit stop. Consultation is going on right now, but the initial call is that Kevin, we showed him on the screen, moving out around turns 1 and turn 2. Maybe you saw it, make your own call, but the initial word is, hasn't happened yet, Kevin may be required to come in for a stop-and-go penalty.
As we watch the action on the racetrack in the pit area, Pancho Carter also comes in for a very brief stop. It looks like that they did no work on that car, so that too is a stop-and-go penalty for Pancho Carter, and it's for the same infraction, getting 4 wheels above that yellow line that Pancho is under right now while blending into traffic prior to reaching the backstretch.
Bobby Rahal, the man who has been Mr. Speed for the last 30, maybe 45 days in IndyCar racing. Mr. Speed not only on high-speed ovals like this, you see he's ranked 6th in the point standing so far with a mathematical chance of becoming champion. He's been fast not only on these racetracks, but also the road courses and the short oval like up at St. Air, the Triangle. Bobby Rahal has shown tremendous versatility and tremendous miles per hour in the last few races here in IndyCar racing.
Bobby Rahal's win this year in IndyCars came at Mid-Ohio just not too long ago. In the most recent race at St. Air near Montreal, Canada, he finished in 10th position. Pocono, he was 4th at the Elkhart Lake Road America event. He was also 4th, and a couple of other top 10 finishes. He was 6th at Michigan and 9th at Milwaukee. There is Kevin Kogan coming in for the stop-and-go penalty. You will see him come to a complete stop. Well, almost, and accelerating, moving back out onto the pit area. That's their penalty for violating the rule that says you can't get 4 wheels above the yellow line.
And they were pretty succinct in the drivers' meeting about it. I must say that compared to 200 miles per hour, I would imagine that 2 or 3 miles an hour seems like you're stopping.
Let's get more on the penalty situation from Jack Arute.
You've been mentioning, gentlemen, the blend line, that yellow line in turns 1 and 2. Well, in the drive drivers' meeting, all the drivers had a heated discussion as to how best to use the blend line. Because of the roughness on the low side of the racetrack, the drivers were given a dispensation to put 2 wheels on the outside of that line before they pull up into the racing traffic or they're assessed a penalty. But what got into a heated discussion was whether under caution periods you could blend higher or lower than out of the backstretch. Well, under green, you have to blend when you get to the end of the backstretch, and they were very implicit that if you did not do that, if you pulled up too soon, i.e. in turns 1 and 2 and put 4 wheels over the line, they were going to bring you in for what they call a stop-and-go penalty. You pull in, and it literally loses about 5 to 10 seconds of your speed and your position on the racetrack.
So that's an explanation of why we have seen 2 stop-and-go penalties to this point involving Pancho Carter and Kevin Kogan. Bobby Rahal moving to the low side in turn number 3 and putting a lap on Tom Sneva as Rahal continues to set the pace here. His advantage over Rick Mears, who is now in second spot, is about 9 seconds. Because of the stop-and-go penalty, Kevin Kogan drops to 4th position.
Rahal moving in on Mario Andretti there to put a lap on Mario. And by the way, just as a tag onto the story about blending there, even under a yellow, it was decided you should not put all 4 wheels above the blend line until you reach the backstretch. So the rule's the same depending upon either flag, green or yellow.
We told you it was going to be a fast race. We're already past the halfway mark, and they're averaging 195.7 miles an hour. We'll be right back with more. A little bit faster than that here on the high banks of Michigan as we pick up the action once again on the racetrack. There's your leader, Bobby Rahal. His advantage over Rick Mears is almost 8 seconds. Ed Pym is in 3rd position now, and 4th is Kevin Kogan. At the halfway point, we have only run 30 minutes and 2 seconds. The average speed, 199.60 miles an hour. 5 leaders and 7 lead changes. No caution periods to this point, and let's hope there aren't any unless it could be for debris on the racetrack. Now, as far as cars out of the race, well, there isn't a whole lot to tell you. Michael Andretti in car number 99, who led this race early, is the only car officially out of the race. At the halfway point, here were the top 5. Bobby Rahal in the lead, Rick Mears running 2nd, Ed Pym was 3rd, Kevin Kogan 4th, and Don Whittington was running in 5th position. Danny Engaias listed as 6th, and those 6 cars are on the lead lap. In 7th position, a lap down, Danny Sullivan. 8th is Tom Sneva, 9th Mario Andretti, and 10th Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, as far as Al Unser Jr. is concerned, the leader in the kart's point battle, he is running 15th and is also a lap down. So all 3 drivers, and by the way, Al Unser Sr. is 2 laps down. So those guys up front battling for the points lead are not having a particularly good day here at Michigan.
Speaking of guys involved in the points, there goes Emo underneath Mario, and Emerson Fittipaldi moves to the inside of Mario Andretti. And as Bob mentioned, very few of the people who are doing well on the points. As a matter of fact, nobody is running up solidly in the top 5. The point scramble in 1985 has become a real scramble. There is Al Unser Sr. moving underneath Mario. So Fittipaldi, Sr. and Mario running together with Pete Halsmer, but not for a significant amount of points.
Al Unser Sr.'s problems were in the pit area. He was in for a very long pit stop, and that's the reason that he is 2 laps behind the leader at this point, being shown in 18th position. There is Jose Garza in car number 55, and he is being shown in 11th position, a lap down. Jose Garza is, of course, from Mexico City, and you are well aware, I'm sure, of the tremendous damage that has been done in Mexico City from the earthquake. We talked to him about it.
First of all, Jose, how's your family?
Well, thank God they're all right. My mother flew in last night. She was able to get out of Mexico City a day after the earthquake, so all my family is okay in Mexico. My uncles and my girlfriend's here too, so that it was a long day and a half, but it makes me feel a lot better to sit in here.
Part of the reason for that long day and a half was that you were unable, as a native of the country, to get this precise information you wanted.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's very hard to know which areas were affected and which areas weren't. And now that my mother's up here, she's telling me that there's a lot of the areas that are not affected. A lot of the residential zones were actually untouched. And I know some of the amateur radio operators and some of the ham radio operators are able to get through and get an idea of which areas are really safe, and it would help a lot if some of the news networks and some of the cable news would report which areas are affected and which areas aren't.
We, of course, at ESPN share in Jose Le's relief that everybody in his family is okay. Jose Le Garza has improved his position quite well in this race with 38 laps to go. He started 25th and is running 10th. You can see the average speed there, about 198 miles an hour.
Rahal is slowing, and I think this is early. It's only lap 62. He is not coming into the pits. Our leader may be in trouble. Here comes Al Unser Sr. smoking in, and Rahal stays out on the racetrack. Al Unser Jr., I beg your pardon.
Al Unser Jr. does come in, and look at the smoke pouring from the engine compartment of this race car, and Al Unser Jr.'s day is over. He'll be unstrapping and getting himself out of that race car. Tough break for the points leader in CART, Al Unser Jr. and the Domino's Pizza Hot One. They're pushing the car behind the wall. It's all over for Al Unser Jr.
Bob, it does appear to be like nobody wants to win the points championship this year. As you mentioned earlier, just when it seems like somebody's on a hot streak, all of a sudden bad luck begins to come in bunches for them, and race after race they drop out of the point standings race.
Rick Mears has come in for a pit stop, so that will mean a different second-place competitor now. Rick Mears, car number 5, in for a stop. They're changing rubber on the right side of the car and the left rear, in addition to fuel. And they're making it looks like a wing adjustment in the front end of the car. Now the service is complete. Roger Penske motions for Rick to pull out as quickly as possible, and there goes Mears back out onto the racetrack.
Well, Bob, these stops are coming too early, in my opinion, to go the rest of the way. It's going to be very close. Now, it's very possible because we are on lap number 65 now. We told you that 35 to 40 is the range. No, I guess if you're monitoring your fuel, it looks like the consumption is good. Yeah, you could probably stop now and go the rest of the distance. It's a possibility that Rahal has got off the pace just a little bit to conserve fuel here for a couple laps because he does have a fairly comfortable lead.
Fuel could be a problem here today, especially if we go all green. Jack, what are your feelings on that?
I have to agree with what Larry has already said and what you alluded to, Bob, that if we go nonstop, you've had your boost turned up, and you probably gambled just a tad that we were going to have a few cautions, especially if it was Michigan. So those tanks behind me, they're going to be what may tell the story as to who the winner is. How much fuel you got at the end. Remember, you're allocated 1.7 miles per gallon of fuel that's in that tank, and with the speeds over 195 miles per hour average that we're turning right now, we could have some guys run out of fuel.
That's a problem that we always have to worry about in Formula One racing, and it could be definitely a factor here in this one. Don Whittington moves back out onto the racetrack. Meanwhile, Kevin Kogan is in for a stop. They go to work on that car.
Kogan is the man who has shown tremendous horsepower, tremendous speed all day long. I was trying to get a watch on him to compare his speed with the leader, Rahal, and Rahal got off the pace a little bit just as I started to time Kevin. I think they were comparable on the racetrack, but Kevin lost all that time with that stop-and-go penalty, so without a caution flag to bunch up the field, I don't think Kevin has a very good chance for victory here today.
There's the leader, Bobby Rahal. Now, we may have noticed him slowing down a couple of laps ago, but he's still on the pace and still the leader of this race. Back with more from Michigan International Speedway in just a moment. The Detroit News 200 for IndyCars at Michigan International Speedway. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Larry Nuber in the booth and Jack Arute in the pit area. We have a tremendous race going on here, and with only 30 more laps to go, 70 have been completed. Bobby Rahal is the leader of this race, and Ed Pym, believe it or not, is the only other car on the lead lap, 17 seconds behind Bobby Rahal. Third is Danny Sullivan, who has come on from a 23rd starting position, and running in fourth position, I should say, Rick Mears, and in fifth is Tom Steva.
Just to put things in perspective, the last time everybody was out on the track after the pit stop under green, there were 6 cars on the lead lap. Pym on Gaius, Don Whittington was among those, as well as Kevin Kogan, and of course the leader, Bob Bobby Rahal. So those other people who are up there right now, Sullivan namely, they have not stopped yet. They have to stop, as well as does the leader, Bobby Rahal, have to pit stop. And it's beginning to look like they have this race well in hand. They've now gone 35 laps this time. They went 36 laps the first time, and as Jackie Root mentioned, this has been all in the hot green flag racing. We've gone easily 200, 205 miles an hour, lap after lap for the leader. So Rahal, Truman, and everybody seem to really have themselves dialed in for today's race.
29 laps to go and no yellows to this point. 200.03 miles an hour is the speed that the cars are averaging. Bobby Rahal setting the pace. You saw him move to the inside of Jeff Brabham down the backstretch and put another lap on Jeff just a few minutes ago. Jeff Brabham in car number 7 is now shown as 3 laps down. Danny Sullivan comes in. He is our third-place competitor here, although a lap down. Sullivan comes in for his second routine pit stop. Let's watch. A crash up in corner number 4. A crash in corner number 4. A car is on fire. At least there is some fire coming from the side of the car. That is Scott Brayton, who has hit the wall rather hard. And there is fire coming from the right side of the car. However, you can see Scott throwing the steering wheel out and trying desperately to get out of that race car. But the wheel is on fire, and the right side of the car is also blazing. Obviously, no fire in the cockpit, at least we hope not, because Scott is moving around and directing the firefighting operations. You can see him ducking his head and trying to avoid the powder that puts out the fire. Now Scott Brayton is trying to get out of the car. It's not unusual for these drivers to be trapped in their vehicles, and it looks like Scott is going to be okay. He's under his own power, looking back at his damaged race car, and that's good news because Scott Brayton took a hard shot into that third and fourth turn wall.
Bobby really did. I would imagine that Scotty was just a little stunned because here at Michigan, we've commented so many times how fast you're going all the way around there. And it looked like the fire was not anywhere dangerously close to the cockpit, but Scott did spend a little extra time getting out of there. I thought for a moment he might be trapped in, but he looks to be in very good health now, and all the Nomex uniforms doesn't even look singed, so things seem to be in pretty good shape.
Well, Scott had just come in for a pit stop. I watched him come in. There is Mario Andretti, and look at the smoke coming from the engine compartment of that car, and it looks like that could be all over for Mario Andretti also. We are under our first caution period of the afternoon because of the accident involving Scott Brayton. Scott is okay, so that is very good news. Mario Andretti, meanwhile, is climbing out of that race car. Now ESPN and CART present a Track Back.
This style of windshield on the 1985 Marches just didn't work. That vertical lip on the front forced the air almost straight up in the air and not in a smooth, flowing line over the cockpit. But now we have this. This new windscreen, as you can see, is almost an extension of the front fuselage of the car. Plus this collar that goes around the back of the driver's head is just about a complete envelope now. There used to be big gaps here for the air to get around and get behind the driver's head. He complained of buffeting. A lot of the drivers said it felt like their head was being pushed down into the cockpit. Now that doesn't happen with this new style. And that can be very important to a man trying to go 200 miles an hour and trying to stay on 50 feet of pavement.
This Track Fact has been brought to you by Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco. Time after time, the quality comes through. We are yellow because of Scott Brayton's accident. Scott is okay. Mario Andretti is out of the race. We'll be back to resume action in just a moment. We are back at Michigan, and there is the very badly damaged car of Scott Brayton. He took a hard shot into the third and fourth turn walls, but Scott Brayton is okay. Mario Andretti is out of the race. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, you can see that Tony Cicali and Mario Andretti are still huddled in a conversation here. Now, what's going on is called a debriefing. Cicali, the chief designer and engineer for Mario Andretti's Carl Haas Lola team, and what they do is they go through everything that has happened in the race. They say, how did the car handle in this situation? How did the car handle in that situation? They literally go through just what an astronaut does as they come out of the space shuttle. Well, the race driver does it as well.
Well, Mario Andretti sits on the pit wall, disgustedly out of this race. There was a very controversial finish, as you well know, of the Sanair IndyCar race recently. Here is a further examination with Larry.
He's going to give it a shot. He'll move to the outside of Johnny Rutherford. Now, wait a minute. What happens this time?
Carter was across the line first. Pancho Carter may have won this race.
The last IndyCar race at Sanair in Canada ended amidst a great deal of confusion over exactly who won the race. Now, Pancho Carter has been declared the winner of that race by CART, but Johnny Rutherford says, my team won the race. The matter seems to be, can you finish a race from the final turn of an event with just the green light flashing on and the checkered flags flying? Well, we did not have an opportunity to delve more deeply into the matter because we had to rush off the air in Canada, but with the review board convening this coming Monday, we thought we'd take that opportunity now. As a team, did you, Pancho, and everybody else anticipate that race going back under green conditions?
Yeah, we did, because there was confusion. People were coming up from different teams and telling us we were a lap down, and we were quite upset about that. In fact, we protested that with CART saying we were on the same lap. And we saw them hurrying in turn one to get the thing cleaned up, and we were just disappointed that, you know, there was only going to be a half a lap or one lap to run. And because Jeff was also in fourth place and had a very good shot to win the race too. So we always anticipate it's going to go green, and then if it doesn't, that's it.
And really the basis is the rule book, page 13. Before you can improve your position after a yellow flag packup, a green flag must again be displayed before you can improve your position. So we had 7 people out there staying in line, and we had 1 that didn't, and that's what we're going to go to court for, to try to reverse the decision of Wally Dallenbach. I mean, it's just a matter. We have no malice towards anybody. You go for all you can in racing. That's what racing's about, except we weren't alone in thinking what we were thinking out on the racetrack. We had 7 other racers that stayed in line, and that's really the basis of the case. And we've compiled through counsel enough evidence to, we hope to have the appellate court realize that that's exactly what transpired, and it's up to them to render a decision.
Big part of the controversy seems to be the equation between green flag and green light. Rulebook says race cars may not pass under the yellow flag, but must maintain their positions until the green flag is again displayed. You feel as though you guys were perhaps better prepared for the end of that race than maybe another team?
Well, better prepared, or just paying more attention. It was obvious to me that we were going to have a restart. Whether or not it was for part of a lap or for a whole lap, it didn't really matter. All the indications were there that we're going green. We did go green, and it was time to go racing again.
The difference that we have here, is it a matter of what has been done traditionally in racing versus what has been told to drivers this year in drivers' meetings?
Well, we never have been told that in drivers' meetings, to be quite honest. This is a brand new deal. What happened at Sanair at the finish of the race is something that's never happened before, and we've never been briefed on a situation where it might or it might not. It's just a case of we play it by ear, and my feeling is that they can't do what they did because the race was over. There was no more green time. We started the last lap, and it was on the yellow, so it was designated yellow, and you can't turn any portion of a lap green. There were no more laps to run, so it was over.
Does CART potentially see 2 sides to this issue?
Well, obviously there's 2 sides to it, or we wouldn't be in the appeal process we're in right now. But that's what the appeal process is for, is that we're going to have a quick, impartial, and fair hearing, and it's going to be resolved, and we're going to get on down the road. So there's 2 sides of the question, or we wouldn't be in the process we're in right now.
And a couple of other things to point out. First of all, that hearing will be conducted tomorrow. The head judge is Bill Alsop, former driver. Also on the board, Roger Ward and Bobby Hillin. Now, in addition to hearing the protest lodged by Johnny Rutherford and his crew, they will also be hearing a protest lodged by Pat Patrick and the Emerson Fittipaldi crew. That involves Fittipaldi's alleged passing of the pace car under yellow at Pocono. So 2 hearings tomorrow in the Detroit area. And we would also like to admit when we do something wrong, and that is we feel we may have added to the confusion at Sanair by calling the wrong winner. And we apologize for that if we did mislead anyone. Well, there is Al Unser Sr., who's had a tough afternoon. You can see, if you look very closely between the rear wheels, you can see the jack that raises the car up off of the ground. If it isn't dragging the racetrack, it's very close. Al Unser is shown in 14th position at this point, 2 laps down. We're under yellow. The cleanup has been completed. We should be going green soon, and we'll resume with our action in a moment.
Still under the caution conditions here at Michigan International Speedway when this gentleman, Scott Brayton, crashed hard in the turn 3 and 4 area. Scotty, actually what happened?
Well, to tell you the truth, Jack, I don't really know. We came in and got fuel, and we hadn't been running too bad. I had some handling problems we were pushing, so I made some changes to the car that were going to help it, and I went out and went into 3, and when I turned in at the apex, it just went, you know, for the wall, and so undoubtedly something happened.
And the right side is just all tore up. You really took a wallop up there. How about you physically?
Oh, I'm fine, and it's just unfortunate. It's been a tough couple weeks here, and I can't believe it, but you know, I just tried to keep it off the wall, and it just went at it, and so I guess we're lucky, you know, I'm fine and everything like that, and I'll be back and running strong again.
How tough is it on a team like yourself when you crashed during a practice session 2 weeks ago at Indianapolis, then you crashed the race car here today? That's got to put a heavy financial and mental burden on someone like Brayton.
Well, it's more of a mental burden than anything, and I can quickly overcome that because both of my accidents have been related to manufacturing problems that, you know, I don't know what happened here, but obviously, you know, I mean, nobody hits going into 3, and it was unfortunate whatever happened. If it, I don't know, but I'll be back and I'm ready.
Well, that's the word from Scott Brayton. Let us, while we have you, update you on the condition of Al Unser's car. We've got the green flag coming out, though. We'll talk about that later.
All right, we do go back to racing with Bobby Rahal, the leader. We are beginning lap number 83 here. 82 laps have been completed, and Rahal is the leader. The average speed of the race, of course, has dropped off considerably because of the yellow, and it looks like we're not going to have the fastest IndyCar racing history. The average speed has dropped to 174 miles an hour. Bobby Rahal moving to the inside now, down the backstretch and passing one of the Machinist Union cars in turn number 3.
Well, Rick Mears is now running in second, Ed Pym in third, and Kevin Kogan is in 4th position, but he had to make an extra stop during that yellow flag and is being shown by kart timing and scoring as 1 lap down. Kind of anticipated the possibility of a charge from Kevin, but with 1 lap in arrears with less than 15 laps to go now, Kevin's chances for victory are completely gone, but I don't know how exactly that happened or why Kevin had to come in for that extra pit stop with his costume gear.
Only 3 cars on the lead lap, Mears and Pym behind Bobby Rahal. Don Whittington is sneaking up on Kevin Kogan, and this is the race for 4th position now. Kogan in the blue and yellow car, and Whittington in the blue and red car, battling for 4th spot here. Kevin Kogan looked so strong earlier in this race before he had to come in for a stop and was penalized for moving too high on the racetrack, coming onto the track, and Whittington now moves to the inside in turn number 1. Whittington moves into 4th place.
Don Whittington has had a great weekend. He's been fast from the time they took this car off the trailer. He is one of the candidates for this ride for next year. He's been in consultation with Pat Patrick. As you know, they've experimented with Bruno Giacomelli, with Sammy Swindell out of the sprint car ranks, and of course Whittington has been in this car a couple of times this year and shown some real speed. Whittington is a candidate. He says he's pretty sure he's got the ride, but only time will tell. Certainly he's one of the front runners, and if his performance today is any indication, he may be the front runner.
Don Whittington has finished in 1 IndyCar race so far this year. He was 24th at the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Now Kevin Kogan begins to move around Pete Halsner over there on the backstretch, but you can see the interval that Whittington has put between himself and that car for the position.
Whittington has really taken off away from Kevin Kogan. There we go back up front and look at Bobby Rahal. I would suggest that he is running a controlled race, Bob. He definitely showed everybody that he can go significantly faster than this earlier in the race. He's run a conservative race. He stayed out of trouble. He's taken his time moving through lap traffic, and he's run, I believe, a very heady race.
Well, the weather may be becoming a factor here at Michigan. When we started this race, we had hazy, but at least sunshine. But in the last few laps, the clouds have moved in, and as a matter of fact, when we look toward the west and the southwest, the clouds are beginning to look rather ominous. And we have have a crash up in turn number 3. That is Whittington. Whittington, who had passed Kevin Kogan just 2 laps ago and was pulling away, loses control in turn number 3 and bangs the wall.
Boy, tough break, not only for Whittington, but also for Pat Patrick. So many times in the last 2 or 3 years as Don tosses out the steering wheel and extricate himself. Don struggling to get out, of course, telling the safety crew members, I'm okay, I can walk away out of this thing. Limping, no, not limping a little bit, jogging over to the inside, and Don Whittington going down to the infield area. But what a big disappointment for that team. They've had so many incidents like this in the last couple of years where their machinery has gone home, wadded up in the back of the truck. But Don Whittington certainly did have a rapid weekend.
From looking at the car, it would appear as if Whittington's impact with the wall over in turn 3 wasn't as severe as it was with Scott Brayton. Both wheels are still on Whittington's car. They're on the right side, but it is considerably damaged. And Don Whittington has gotten out of the car. He has jogged to a safe position. He is okay. But we're under our second yellow of this race, and now there are just about 10 more laps to go. Back in just a moment at Michigan. At Michigan, and without question, one of the most outstanding performances of this race has been turned in by Ed Pym. He is in 3rd position and still on the lead lap.
Yeah, they took some chances this weekend. They changed the front and the rear suspension. This is an entirely different race car from what they had here in July. They've gone to softer springs with a little bit less rear wing, and it has really worked out for Ed Pym, Dan Gurney, and company. Once again, Don Whittington is okay. The second of our 2 crashers, both of them taking place here in turns 3 and 4 this afternoon. Here is Bob now with our usual mid-race report on our ESPN broadcast.
This is the STP Inside Track Report, brought to you by the STP Corporation. On the world's racetracks and on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. The CART B Series has been on and off the past year. It was talked about a year ago at this time, but it never came to be because of lack of interest. Well, there is an effort underway to revitalize and rejuvenate the CART B Series for 1986. With a further look at that, here is Jack Arute.
Bob, things seem to be coming together quite nicely for 1986 and the B Series. It'll be called the American Racing Series and will involve cars that are upgrades of the Formula 3000 out of March Engineering. Robin Hurd is one of the principals in the proposal that seems to have the inside track at CART. They'll be rented for 8 races. The engines will be stock American, normally aspirated V6 motors with about 400 horsepower. Now, the other principal in this will be Ralph Sanchez, who is the proprietor and promoter of the Tamiami race down in Miami. We'll stay on top of this story as it unfolds and have more for you in later editions of Inside Track.
A couple of interesting tie-ins between CART and Formula One here this weekend at Michigan. First of all, American Eddie Cheever, who has been in Formula One the past few years, is here shopping around for an IndyCar ride for 1986, possibly for later this year. And Bobby Rahal has been testing in Europe and could possibly be considered as the driver of a Ferrari effort in CART next year. We talk with both of those drivers.
Eddie, is there a better than average chance that you will come over here to race next year?
Definitely a better than average chance. I gamble on Alfa Romeo. I stayed 2 years with them, and we haven't really had that much success that I was looking for. Now I am going to consider what I want to do next year. There's a good possibility I might come here and race.
Would you like to run a Ferrari next year?
I'd like to run a Ferrari, period.
The cost of IndyCar racing continues to escalate. Recently, Andy Kennepinsky, the team manager for the Machinist Union team, wrote to CART board chairman John Frasco concerning this matter. What is Frasco's response?
I don't know if there's a solution to that points raised in there, because this sport is not an inexpensive sport, and I don't see anything on the horizon that means that it's going to get any more inexpensive than it is. But we have taken it under advisement. We're going to meet with the people involved, and in fact, we're having a meeting here tomorrow. So I hope that we can get it cleared up.
The Michigan 500 IndyCar race was postponed here at Michigan International Speedway earlier this year because of a problem the drivers were having with radial tires. We talked with Goodyear's director of racing, Leo Mell, concerning the future of radial tires and IndyCar racing.
Well, because of that incident, we didn't get to run the Pocono 500 on radials, and it shortened the time we had to develop a tire for next year. year's Indy 500. The chances are very slim that we'll run a radial next year at Indy. We have to develop a laboratory test, which we were doing very well on, where we can fail the tire, have an air loss, simulate a puncture, and develop a tire that'll give the driver a warning. We're doing very well on that project, but, you know, with the weather changing from now, there's not much good weather left till next spring.
A real tough job, Bob, and there are a lot of things going on, but I think the most important thing is that there's a lot of dialogue also taking place. And I'd like to make one comment about the board that's been picked for the two disputes that are going to be heard this week. I think it was very fair. We got Bobby Hillman, Roger Ward, and Bill Alsop, three people who came from different backgrounds in automobile racing, representing different generations, and I think it's a real solid choice.
Well, the cleanup is still going on out in turn number 3. We've only got 8 laps to go, and the blower that removes the dust and the dirt from the racetrack is still on the track. You can see it there on the high side, blowing the dust and dirt off of the track that was put there by Don Whittington's accident. So it's going to be a couple of more laps before we go green. The average speed of this race has been reduced to 167.28 because of the 2 yellows involving Scott Brayton and Don Whittington. We'll be right back with more from Michigan. The green flag has just come out. The cars go into corner number 1, and we are back to racing. 93 laps have been completed. We have less than 7 to go now, and Bobby Rahal looks like he could win his second race of 1985. His advantage over Rick Mears is about 4 seconds, and there is Rick, the yellow car. And look at Danny and Gaius also moved by Danny Sullivan. 3 abreast racing here in turn number 3. Rick Mears goes to the high side and passes both Bill Whittington and Danny and Gaius. Now, Gaius has passed Danny Sullivan for position. That moves Danny Sullivan back to 7th, and Gaius up to 6th.
Boy, great dicing going on. It looks like almost like the start of the race. Rick Mears in that bright yellow car was way down at the bottom of the racetrack trying to move up on Rahal. Remember, he runs in 2nd position, but Rahal is about a straightaway ahead of him, and seemingly no chance to catch him with 96 laps completed.
And the 3rd car on the lead lap is Ed Pim in number 98. 4th a lap down is Kevin Kogan. In 5th position is Tom Spiva. 6th is Jose Le Garza. 7th is Danny and Gaius, and in 8th spot is Danny Sullivan.
In case you were wondering, I suppose many of you saw the Sanair finish. It was decided in the driver's meeting today that this race would not end like last week's race at Sanair. Before going green, there would be at least 1 full lap of yellow in case there's a yellow near the end of this race. So we would not have a repeat finish like we had in Canada last race.
Bobby Rahal is the leader, but Danny and Gaius in that black number 25 car in the middle of the screen. He is running by himself on the low side of the racetrack, and Gaius, of course, the victim of a very tough accident during the Michigan 500. That car out of control, flipping and rolling down the backstretch, but Danny and Gaius not injured. You saw it in the very opening portion of our broadcast today. Danny and Gaius in the Underscope, racer number 25.
We also had a quick shot at Steve Chassie, who's also been able to stay out there all race long. And Gaius running all by himself right now, having a good day. Danny's usually being faster. You know, he's won a race here in MIS. This racetrack with its high speed is the kind of place that Danny and Gaius really likes to get his teeth into. So even though Gaius is not going to win this one, he's got to feel like today has been somewhat of a success for him.
This is only Danny and Gaius' 4th race of 1985. He was 17th at the Indianapolis 500, finished 20th here at Michigan earlier, and was 22nd at Pocono. There's the leader, Bobby Rahal, still setting the pace here with about a second advantage on Rick Mears, who is coming up quickly and will undoubtedly try to challenge Bobby Rahal now as we enter lap number 99. 1 lap to go. The white flag has been displayed, and Mears, although he is closing in on Rahal, I don't think is going to have enough momentum build up to take the lead. Bobby Rahal is on the last lap of this 100-lapper here at Michigan. Now midway down the backstretch. Bobby Rahal just a few car lengths actually ahead of Rick Mears, but something is going to have to go wrong with Rahal's car if he loses this race. They come out of corner number 4. There is Rick Mears right behind him. Here they come through the tri-oval. The checkered flag is waved. Bobby Rahal wins. Rick Mears is second, just a few car lengths behind.
think it was just a tease. I don't know about you, Bob, but I think Rahal has had this race in his control since about the halfway point. A most intelligent race that has been run, I would suggest. Rick Mears pulls up alongside and salutes the winner, Bobby Rahal. He's had some close calls in recent weeks. Of course, he won at Mid-Ohio. He was involved in unfortunate circumstances at San Air when Jacques Villeneuve drove into the back of him. But Bobby Rahal today really turned in a just 1,000% performance.
Second win of the year. His other victory was before the ESPN cameras at Mid-Ohio just a few weeks ago. But now Rahal visits victory lane again here at Michigan. Second spot, Mears, and our hats off to a great performance by Ed Pym, who turned in his best performance ever in IndyCar racing this year with a third-place finish. His previous best this year was a fifth during the Michigan 500 on this very racetrack. So Bobby Rahal will be pulling into victory lane, and Jack Arute will be visiting with him when we return to Michigan International Speedway. Bobby Rahal has climbed out of the car and is ready now to talk with us about his victory in the Detroit News 200. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, I'm a little bit blocked out here by Steve Horn, the crew chief. They're all getting the congratulations. Bobby, a terrific ride. Looked to be maybe just a little uneventful, but still it was a good run.
Well, I was having fun. I was hoping that I knew if there was another yellow, Rick was going to be tough, and unfortunately for me, at that point, there was another yellow, and he caught up that whole lap we had on him. So, but it was a good finish. You know, I was trying my hardest at the end, and I'm sure he was too.
You know, earlier in the week, I said, do you think maybe Michigan owes you one? Now that you've got one under your belt, how does it feel?
Well, you know, we won this race in our first year in IndyCar race in '82, and you know, today with so few yellows, I thought the car was running beautifully, the Bug car, and I'm just thrilled. You know, this makes up for July by far.
Well, it's 2 for Bobby Rahal this year, Mid-Ohio and now Michigan. He likes the Midwest. Back up to the tower.
All right, and our winner's circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. Well, as we take this break, and we'll be right back, we'll have some final comments about this race that was just completed here this afternoon. Once again, the winner of the event was Bobby Rahal. We'll be right back. Back at Michigan, Bobby Rahal the winner. Larry, a couple of accidents. Scott Brayton and Don Whittington into the wall, but no injuries, and it was a rather safe race.
Bob, the interesting thing is 5th and 6th in the point standings are the people who rack up points. The points remain Junior on top, Senior moves in the 2nd, Mario's 3rd, Fittipaldi is 4th, Sullivan picks up a few, Rahal picks up a bunch, picking up 22 points. He's now only 20 behind Al Unser Jr. The points battle continues to heat up.
All right, let's review the top 10 finishers in the race. The winner, of course, was Bobby Rahal. Finishing in 2nd spot was Rick Mears, then Ed Pym, Kevin Cogan 4th, and Tom Sneva was 5th. In 6th position, Jose Legarza. 7th was Danny Ungaius. 8th was Danny Sullivan. 9th was Johnny Rutherford, and 10th was Pancho Carter. Average speed 163.6. The race speed, the green speed, average was 196.5. The Detroit News 200 has been brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by the STP Corporation. On the world's racetracks and on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. And by Pennzoil Motor Oil. Quality protection. Ask for it. Next week, we'll be at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina Speedway for the Holly Farms 400. And join us for Speed Week 7th.